very delighted to welcome all of you at this Rentrée Littéraire webinar. Actually, the webinar is really a pretext for dialogue between Indian and French publishers. First of all, I would like to warmly thank Oxford Bookstore, Pretty Paul, Nita Sridharan as friends, but also partners of all our literary events. And before requesting our pair of publishers, we have 3 pairs of publishers. I hope so, because we have some, maybe some of you have a connection problem. And the idea is really to point out what is the Rentrée Littéraire in France, but also to have a dialogue on important titles, Indian titles and French titles at this season, during this literary season. Today, after this, after the dark lockdown, and in the context of the corona crisis, it seems like a ball of fresh air with a French Rentrée Littéraire, and we wanted to share with all of you this ball of fresh air. What I wanted to say, you know that in France, Rentrée Littéraire is always a great event. This is a peak of literary season. I know that we don't have the same literary season in India, and it's really interesting to listen to all of you publishers and readers about the literary season. Even if during the 2 months of lockdown between mid-March and mid-May, the sales fell to 19.5% compared to 2019 in France. But the book economy in France has experienced an unexpected rebound with the end of lockdown, plus 19% from May to July compared to last year during the same period. It's in some part an excellent surprise, but in the face of uncertainty, the economic situation of the publishers and bookstores is still fragile. Just before requesting our pair of publishers to come on stage, I would like to share with you some elements and some figures. This year, in September, the Rentrée Littéraire will announce 511 new titles. If we compare with last year, it's quite the same. Last year, the new titles were 525. More French titles than compared to last year, and less foreign novels titles. But what we have to really point out that Rentrée Littéraire is also a space for foreign novels. We have this year 145, again last year 188. And also we have a little bit less debut novels. We have only, but when I say only, it's enormous, 65 debut novels. So this is just some figures to show you that even in this crisis, even in this dark period, the dynamism of the publishing industries, of the writers, of the publishers, of the booksellers are really focus on this period. So may I request Urvashi Butalia and Sabine Wespieser to come on stage. And before listen to her, I would like to just say some word about Sabine Wespieser, editor. She's an independent publishing house dedicated to literature. Every year she selects and published 10 titles, French and foreign fiction. Sabine Wespieser published the books she admires and finds necessary, and takes the greatest care of the book aspect. Urvashi Butalia from Zubaan. Urvashi Butalia co-founded Cali for Women in 1984, and in 2003 she created Zubaan Publishers. With over 35 years of experience in feminist and independent publishing, she has a formidable reputation in this publishing industry in India and abroad. She also has a long involvement in the women's movement in India, and she's a well-known writer, both in academic and in the literary world. She's a very close friend to French writer, translators, publisher, and she received many awards, among which are the French Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres. So thank you so much, Sabine Wespieser and Urvashi Butalia, for accepting this invitation. And please come on stage, Victoria.
Thank you, Christine.
So I don't know, yeah, I don't know who want to start to present to the audience 2 titles of this literary season. Maybe Sabine or
Sabine, I would like to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you, Urvashi.
Thank you. So I'm trying to begin this. So thank you very much for the invitation, and hello to everybody online. As Christine told it, Rentrée Littéraire is a very important season for us for several reasons, I may say, because the main literary prizes in France are in autumn. So there is a tradition of publishing more in September, especially, end of August, September, October. Of course, to get the chance to be on the lists of these important prizes, the most important for us is Le Prix Goncourt. And so this tradition began, and for once in the year, literature is really an event. I know France is has a reputation of being to be a literary country. That's true, but we have the same difficulties than everybody over the world with literature, especially and fiction. I'm just talking about fiction, which I'm exclusively publishing. I'm publishing literary fiction. And so the main newspapers, magazines give a great lot of pages to this Rentrée Littéraire. For me, it's of course an important period, but I'm publishing, as Christine told it, 10 titles a year. This means that for the Rentrée Littéraire, this year I will publish 2 books. But it's true that if these books are working and finding readers, etc., it will be a very large part of my turnover for the year, especially this year with the lockdown and with of course the virus. You know that and was the same for you. The bookshops have been closed for 2 months, so that means that I'm not publishing during summer because, as a French exception, summer holidays are everything is closed, everybody, especially in August. So for during 5 months, I only published one book. I have to say that the most part of my turnover is done with the new books and not with the backlist. So, of course, this period is really very important. And the first articles, the first selections, the debut novel I'm publishing, and I'm going to talk about, of course, by a French Lebanese writers, just got a little prize for just the beginning of the season, and this is very important, of course, because there are a lot of books, 511, and our duty as editors, as publisher, is to be able to share with the maximum of people our enthusiasm. So La Rentrée Littéraire is also a very important period, because during the whole summer, booksellers, journalists were able to read our books. We sent them before, in June, and this is the only moment of the year when they have so much time to read. So I said I published 2 books who are coming out the day after tomorrow, the 27th of August. I am always publishing important books, of course, for me, during that period, who is so important. And this year I have one debut novel and one book by one writer who is a pillar of my catalogue, Diane Meur. So I'm publishing a book whose French title is Sous le ciel des hommes. It could be translated by Under a Shared Sun, but other solutions. Diane published her first debut novel at the launch of my publishing house. This was in the 2002, so almost 20 years ago. She's not writing very often. You have writers who publish every year or every 18 months. It's not the case. Sous le ciel des hommes is only her 6th book. She's very well known now. She's translated into English by an Indian publisher, by Siegel. One of her books is translated. She's also translated in German and in Swedish. And this book in particular is really singular in her work, because till then she wrote books who were settled in a historical period, historical novels. Now it's a contemporary one. It begins in a very quiet and peaceful place. Could be Switzerland, where everybody is wealthy and nothing seems to happen. But you very fast you understand when you read it that it's very contemporary, and then something will happen. Something will happen to the characters of the book, who are there are several people in whose destiny she is writing on. And the first one is a migrant, somebody who arrived, has no ID and has no home. The second one is a journalist, and this journalist is a very cynical man, and he decided to write a bestseller welcoming home a migrant, saying it will work. And in the first chapter, his main problem is to find the good migrant. So very cynical and very contemporary. And right now we understand that at the other end of the town, in a less wealthy apartment, there are 6 guys and girls, people who are in a writing session. And they decided, because they used to be a student of an old teacher they admired very much, who taught about utopia, they decided to write a lampoon. And the title of the lampoon is Against the Current, a critique of capitalism and reason. And this lampoon is just the heart of the book, because with this lampoon will, in a certain way, just give influence the whole book, and every single character will begin to think of his own life, and he will begin to go against the current. And the big surprise of the book is that the cynical journalist will discover himself and discover there is another way of living, and of course the six anti-capitalists also. And what does this book say? And it asks a very important question in the contemporary world. It says, don't we have the choice between worse and better, between good and evil? It's not at all moralistic, and it's really a huge, very passionate novel. Diane is from Belgian origin, and she is very well read, and she especially read Russian and German literature. So it's an important book for me, of course. The other one, I hope that I don't talk too much, Christine, is it okay? Okay. The other book is a debate novel, because I think that even in very difficult moments, which is the case with the lockdown, etc., my real job as an editor is to discover new writers and to take risks. And I'm publishing this debate novel called Mauvaise Herbe. Translation would be Weeds, and written by a Lebanese writer born in Lebanon. Thank you, Christine. And it's true, I have them. Born in Lebanon and born during the Civil War. This debate novel is about her intimacy and about her father. It's very different from the epic prose of Diane Meur. And it's a portrait of the young girl born during the war, civil war in Lebanon, that's 77, and grown in the middle of ruins. At the very beginning, the first chapters show her at 6 years old, and she's very naive, and she thinks that her father will be her hero and will protect her from everything. But she will very quickly understand that it's impossible. Her father is a scholar, a poet, and he has no religion. This is not really the case in Lebanon, and he has no party, and so he's very isolated, and he's not able to really to take care of his family, just making some jokes sometime. And also, and this is a very important part of the book, he's making tiny patches of garden he cultivates every time they move somewhere new, and they move very often because it is war. Whatever, at last, the two of them remain silent and can't communicate out of this love of the plants. At 12 years old, the little girl goes to Paris, and so the topic of the exile is very important in the book too, with her mother and brother. And what this book says is that when you are born in ruins, in a war, when the childhood has been so difficult, it's impossible to recover. And it's also This book says something about the memories and how you can't forget the memories of a child blown to ruins, and it's also a very lovely love story between a father and a child. This is what I would say about these two books. So, Urvashi, now you publishing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sabine. You're right. It's really a love story between the father and her daughter, and the beginning of the story is just, I don't want to say more. Read the book, and we have a question from Trisha Denyogi. Ask you if it's a big book, how many words, but we don't answer right now. I would like please to request Urvashi to present her selection of two books, very different and so important. Thank you, Sabine. Thank you, Urvashi.
Thank you, Christine. And Sabine, thank you so much. Those books sounded lovely. And do you know that I love your catalog? I've had a look at the books, and I love it that you have won, your writers have won so many prix Feminas, which is really nice. And, you know, our situation here is very different in some ways, because we are still in a lockdown situation. Publishers have barely started publishing. We have not published anything for 5.5, 6 months. So when Christine invited me to speak here, I was thinking, looking at our forward list, because of course we don't have a Rentrée Littéraire to release new books. And I was thinking, and everything that I looked at seemed not quite right to be presenting to an international audience, because we are very rooted in Indian books and Indian writers. And then Christine said, well, you know, publishers also talk about some of their gems, some of their favorite books. So I thought that I would talk about two of my gems, which I go back to again and again, and which the lockdown actually has encouraged, because in the lockdown I find I'm reading much more than usual, just going to my bookshelves and starting from the left and reading every book that I have not read in the past. So these two books are both novels, and one of them is actually not an Indian writer but Pakistani, but in the way that those Indians and Pakistanis who do not subscribe to the enmity of our countries think of ourselves as belonging to a similar culture. So I think this book is one of ours. And the other comes from the northeastern part of India, Nagaland. Both books are set against particular histories of those two areas, and both tell the story of one woman who lives through that history, whose life that history shapes, and who somehow deals with memory, grief, sorrow, and a gradual coming to terms with herself. I don't have, because we are in lockdown, the second book is in the office. I don't even have a cover here. But the first one is this one. It's called The Empty Room. And it is a novel from Pakistan. And the author is called Sadia Abbas. It is her very first book, very first novel, actually. And it is a stunningly beautiful story of a woman who is caught in a loveless marriage in Karachi, in one of the main cities of Pakistan. It is an arranged marriage. And from day one, it is something that eats into her and destroys her. And what keeps her alive, she is a painter. And what kept her alive was her painting. But over a period of time, as the marriage becomes arid and filled with insult and grief, she loses the ability to paint. And then she gets involved with her brother and a friend from Lebanon, actually, Sabine, who comes to visit, and they get involved in Pakistani politics of the time, protesting against the fundamentalist government, in student protests and so on, and tragedy strikes over there. And then that tragedy releases her into painting, paintings with angry, vibrant colors at the losses that she has faced. And she calls those series of paintings The Empty Room. So that's where the book gets its title from. And it is deeply poetic, deeply moving, and leads to an ending where she reconciles herself with her domestic life, which is in some ways shakes you, because you think, why? Because you want something different as a reader, but that is the reality of her life. So to me, this is one of my favorite novels, and I like it that at a time like this in India, when we are in a context of a lot of anti-Muslim propaganda, that this kind of Muslim voice should be actually forefronted and out there. The second novel, which I don't have here with me, is is by an author who's very prolific. She is from Nagaland, and her name is Easterine Kire. And she lives now in Norway in exile. This is probably her 8th novel, I think. She's won many awards. We have published 4 of her novels. And well, I forgot to say that Sadia's novel, I'm sorry, this one was shortlisted for the big prize we have here called the DSC South Asian Literature Award. She didn't get it, but she was on the shortlist of 6. Easterine's novels have won many awards, and one of them, which we published some years ago, won the Hindu Literary Award, which is for us quite a prestigious award. But actually, that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one written subsequently, which is a novel about memory. It's called A Respectable Woman. And it is a story set against the end of the World War. And not many people know that pretty much the last battles of World War II were fought in the northeastern part of India, in Manipur and in Kohima. And over there is where the Allies defeated the Japanese. And the Japanese had been there for several months, and they had left behind a culture and a history and all sorts of memories which people are now starting to recover. So Kohima was a town destroyed by the Japanese in the war, but because the Japanese racially looked so much like people in Nagaland, there was a kind of empathy and solidarity with them, also because the soldiers were hungry all the time. So in this novel, we hear the story of the mother of the protagonist of the novel, and it is almost 40 years after the war that the mother allows the memories of the war to enter her consciousness. And then little by little, she starts to tell her daughter the story of the war. And for her daughter, living in present-day Nagaland, where Christianity has become a big thing and where Christianity has thrown out the tradition of liquor, which is native to the place, and imposed prohibition, there is another kind of battle going on. So through all of this, she finds herself as a woman wanting to live an ordinary life, wanting to be respectable and wanting to be loved and wanting to be married. And her story threads through the whole novel till in the end, she comes to a resolution of who she is and what she is. And again, it's a really, like you said, Sabine, deceptively simple. On the surface, you read it and you think nothing is happening, but it is so deep that it stays with you for the longest time. And it is basically 2 characters, the mother and the daughter, who carry that whole story. So those are 2 of my gems. And as I said, both are about single women, or both are about a woman's story, both set against a historical backdrop, and both like a journey of self-discovery. So I'm very proud to have published them. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much, both of you, for this title. And I don't know if you have a question, Sabine to Urvashi, and vice versa. Just maybe one, but it's really up to you, because I don't want you to take too much time for this. But if you want to just immediately react on you.
The two books. Do you have the PDF?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to read to the Lebanese novel, so let's look at those.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Laure, may I request Laure Leroy to come on stage, and Ramakrishna. So I can see you. Oh, yeah, you. Laure. Okay. I see you. And Laure from Zulma French Publisher House, and Ramakrishna from Cre-A, an important publishing house in Tamil Nadu. And just maybe 1 second. Are you there, Cre-A? Okay, maybe I introduce your publishing house, Laure, and Ramakrishnan will join us in a few seconds. So Zulma, it's an independent publishing house. Laure Leroy, when she was 23, she created this Zulma. Hi, Namaste, Ramakrishnan.
Hello.
Hello. She created this independent publishing house, and every year she published around 12 titles per year, which give pride of place to foreign literature and Indian literature, Asian literature, Chinese, Korean, etc. And she has a very unique visual identity. We can show you in a few minutes some covers. Since then, Zulma has been distinguished by a lot of major literary prizes. And in 2019, Zulma opens up essays, and this is the reflective counterpart of a fictional catalogue that looks at the diversity of the world and ideas. So it's really focused on fiction and now essays, but foreign literature is a major part of this of the story of the first decades of this independent French publishing house. Cre-A, thank you, Ramakrishnan, to join us. This is Cre-A is an important publishing house now in the industry for almost 50 years.
47.
Half a century. 46, yeah, 46 exactly. Yeah, half a century, absolutely. It is not a big publisher, neither prolific, but every one of its titles is a valuable addition to the Tamil language and culture. And I'm very pleased to welcome you, because as everybody knows, we have the identity of India is the multilingualism, and it's really important to know more about every literature, local literature by languages, the diversity of the languages. And thank you. So you published, also you translate quite a lot of French titles already, yes. 15, I guess.
More than 15.
So please, maybe I will, more than 15 now. Maybe we will ask you, Laure, to present your selection of titles for the French Rentrée Littéraire. Thank you, both of you, for joining us.
Please, Leroy.
Who's
yeah.
that?
Okay. So thank you very much, and I'm really glad to meet you because we didn't know each other. Christine thought of Zulma, and this I'm very glad too, because I'm very keen on Indian literature. I've published authors from Kerala and Tamil Nadu and also Bengal, and of course many other parts of the world, but I have a special crush for Indian culture and Indian music, I must say. Then this is not the point right now, and as a matter of fact, on this Rentrée Littéraire, we choose to focus on French authors. So I published 2 novels for this Rentrée Littéraire, and I will let you know I will tell you a few things about these 2. The first one is, well, this is on reverse on my screen, so not very easy to read. So Jean-Marie Blas de Robles, Ce qu'ici bas nous sommes. Jean-Marie Blas de Robles is quite a well-known writer in France now. He has had the Médicis Prize some 10 years ago, and he was also on the Goncourt shortlist for a novel called Là où les tigres sont chez eux, where the tigers feel at home. And this is another kind of, how do you say, UFO, a kind of really strange object in the Rentrée Littéraire. It is the story of a guy. Very, very soon you understand that this guy is in a kind of clinic for lunatics, and he's trying to prove others and the readers, of course, that he's not so crazy as he could be. To prove this, he will tell us of a real crazy story that happened to him 40 years ago. And this story brought him in an oasis in the Libyan desert, in an oasis called Zindan. But Zindan is a very strange place because you can arrive in Zindan from any time and from any place. And in Zindan, you have something really special, maybe not special for Indian people, but very special for French people, because God lives in this place. And this place will be described as a very, very crazy place, but in a tone that tells you that it's a very normal place. And what is very crazy with this book is also all the drawings, all sorts of totally crazy drawings that are drawings from the author himself. And it makes the book like, I mean, we are in a crazy period with all this pandemic and the lockdown, but the hero is locked down in this oasis, and his other self is locked down in this clinic for lunatics. And I thought it's really funny, because I wouldn't like to read anything about lockdowns right now. But in this book, everything is so crazy, so totally lunatic, and lots of, you know, fantasy, and really all sorts of crazy things, that in fact it kind of rings a bell with these crazy times we are living right now. So I would really highly recommend this novel by Jean-Marie Blas de Robles, so Ce qu'ici bas nous sommes, which is quite untranslatable by me right now, meaning what we are here down on this earth. It's very approximative. So, and you see some some of the drawings right here on the cover. And really, even if you cannot read it exactly in French, I'm sure you would get lots of pleasure just first looking at it before even reading it. So this is the second book I am publishing. It is not exactly a debut novel, but it's the third novel of a young French woman, Laurence Vilaine, and it is called La Géante meaning the giant one. And this giant is not a person, but it's the mountain. As you could guess on the book cover, so the main hero, the main character of the novel is the mountain, the story being that of three characters who meet by pure accident in a mountain village. And well, many things will happen. I think it's going to be boring if I tell you the whole story of this thing. But the beauty of this novel is mainly in the description of all the nature, the flowers, the herbs, all this natural life that we could all hope or dream to live, being immersed in the nature, in the clouds, in the mountain, in the all the plants and the wild animals. And it's quite the opposite of the other novel by Jean-Marie Blaise de Robles, because now we are in the beauty of some kind of lost wilderness. And it's really a very, very big, how to say, a relief maybe to read such a book in these times. And it's quite short too, and it's brilliant, very poetic language. So this is two good reads, I hope, for this Rentrée Littéraire. And I hope we can do something in any of the Indian language. I would be really happy. Of course, in Tamil will be our priority, but I would be really happy to have more books translated not only in English, but in all these beautiful Indian languages. So thank you, and let me hear about you now.
Thank you so much, Laure, and you're right. It's really important to think translation in Indian languages. That's the most important target. Even in our book office strategy for the coming years, we want to focus on different translation programs from French to Indian languages. Ramakrishna, thank you for joining us, and please share with us and with the audience your selection of, I think, two titles.
Sure. Now, Cre-A is a small publisher. We publish about 12 titles a year. But translation is a major plank in our agenda, particularly direct translations, not through English, not through Hindi when it comes to Indian languages. So we have been very lucky, I should say, to have an excellent translator to translate some of the major French works from French into Tamil, Mr. Sri Ram, who's actually in the audience. We have translated Camus, Sartre, Saint-Exupéry, Ionesco, Jules Romain, Prévert, Yourcenar, Bourdieu, Flusio, Pierre Flusio, and so many. And Mr. Sriram has been my very stable and able translator. And we have enjoyed a working relationship of nearly 40 years. So it's an asset for a publisher to have someone who knows another language and who has a real passion. So I first salute him who's here. Now, coming to Cre-A, I said that we are a small publisher, but let me start with a note of optimism. This year, while all of us know that publishing industry has been through all the miseries it can think of, we have been able to publish 3 titles so far. Very important ones. One by a Sri Lankan Tamil poet on the post-trauma, that is after the 2009 great event, the trauma that the Tamil society suffered. And this is an excellent collection of poems written in a traditional mode of lamentation. That's one. This other one is a novel by a very important writer in Tamil who's been writing for the last 30 years. The third one is a translation of a very famous Greek writer, who was the finance minister of Greece when it was really in trouble, and Varoufakis. And it has been received in spite of all the problems with distribution and readership and reaching out. I must say these books have reached readers somehow. There is a passion, there is a thirst among readers for good works, and whatever be the limitations, they seem to go out in search of good books, and we are very gratified. But the titles too, the 2 titles I'm going to talk about today, one is a product of 8 years of hard work, which is the 3rd edition of a dictionary of contemporary Tamil. One of our, this is our flagship publication. Since 1985, we've been working on a dictionary of contemporary Tamil, and we've been continuously revising it, updating it. And now we are bringing out the 3rd edition, which is actually in press now and will be out in a couple of months. Now, you may wonder how come a small publisher takes up a huge job like compiling a dictionary. This is born more out of our ideological commitment to development of Tamil language. See, we were the first publisher. No, it might sound very strange and very funny to publishers particularly from France, who have a long tradition of professional publishing of high standards. We are the first people to talk about contemporary Tamil. Contemporary Tamil, like any other contemporary language of India, is a vital resource for the common man when it comes to handling, when it comes to facing what is happening in the society around him in every walk of life. So we felt that it is very important for us to focus on what is currently needed by common man. And since 85, we have been systematically working on compiling a dictionary. This is a corpus-based dictionary. That means we collect texts from different sources, different styles, different genres, and then we extract the words and the meanings from this corpus using software. And we were the first people to do this. So when it comes to contemporary Tamil, as I said, which a common man needs, it also means that we are empowering the common man through a dictionary. That is, we are defining every word in the current variety of Tamil using current variety, so that the language becomes transparent and so that language does not get abused by power seekers. In other words, dictionary making is essentially has become a political act. And we do it to the best of our abilities. We have the best linguists on our board to advise us. Dr. Annamalai, who's a linguist of international renown. He is the chairman of the dictionary. So with the help of this corpus, we call out words, we define them, we give illustrative sentences, we also give English equivalents. So this is a major work for us, and whether it is COVID or lockdown or whatever it is, we felt it is very important for us to keep on going, asserting that despite all the obstacles in life, you need to persist, struggle, and bring out what you believe in. And this is what we are doing with this dictionary this year. The other book is a research work. It deals with how the early colonial administrators came to look at Indian languages. They started with Persian, Sanskrit, and subsequently they came to Tamil down south. Like a college was established in Calcutta by William Jones to teach the English administrators Indian languages, and particularly Sanskrit and Persian texts. There was a similar movement in the south, in Chennai, which was then the major city for the East India Company, and they started what Fort St. George College to teach local language, namely Tamil, to administrators. But then it is not simply a question of teaching language. What this research reveals is that the choices they made to choose what texts, in what methods they should proceed to teach Tamil to the British administrators. And it showed, particularly by Ellis, Francis White Ellis, who was the governor of Madras presidency at that time, he looked back, he fell back on the long tradition of the Tamil grammar to teach Tamil, which is at variance with the Tamil that people spoke. Just before Ellis, there was Kindersley, who had taken common texts for translation, important texts like Tirukkural and Nalasarithiram, to inform the colonial administrators. He was the first translator to translate Tamil into English. But Ellis, who followed him, gave up that and went back to a kind of a classical Tamil, the impact of which is even today still felt in the attitude of Tamils towards, in the attitude of people towards Tamil. So this is an important work.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'm so sorry, Ramakrishnan. It's just because we have the third pair of Indian and French publisher. So maybe can you summarize the importance of this title?
Yeah.
And
no, as I told you, no, I have explained the importance of these titles, and I will leave it at that. Thank you for listening to me.
So sorry, I interrupt you. So sorry for interrupting you. Okay. Thank you, Laure. Thank you, Ramaswamy. We have several questions, but we will answer to the question of the audience after the third binôme, the third pair of Indian and French publisher. May I request Aditi Maheshwari, Executive Director of Vani Prakashan Publishing House, to join us, and both literary directors from La Découverte editors, publishing house, French publishing house in social sciences, to come on stage. And don't worry if you don't see Bruno and Rémi Toulouse because they don't Bruno Auerbach, sorry, because they don't have the camera video. But we will very pleased to listen to you. And I propose to start with you, Aditi Maheshwari. Thank you for joining us. And please, could you share with all of the audience and publisher the selection of your two titles? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's a pleasure to be connected with all of you. Urvashi ma'am is also here, and so thank you so much. So I'll come straight to the point. The lockdown period was very stressful in so many ways because we were just trying to figure out what to do with the books that were there in the pipeline. We were trying to figure out how to manage the marketing and communications about the book, and of course, the biggest problem worldwide with the publishing industry has been the sales. So we do understand that we are all in it together. But the two works that I'd like to discuss today, they are, as Urvashi ma'am very rightly said, the pieces of our heart. These are the two big books that we've been working on all this while. Of course, there are many other beautiful books, but these are the ones I'd like to share with you. Take you through the two books that I wanted to talk about. So first book is by a very important literary voice that we celebrate in the Indian subcontinent, and it's Alka Saraogi. She has been published by Gallimard in French, and she has been published in Italian, German, and Spanish earlier. We are doing her new fiction, which is called Kulbhushan Ka Naam Darj Kijiye, that roughly translates to please register the name of Kulbhushan. Now, this book is based in 1905, in the time period of 1905 to 1915, right in the middle of the partition of East and West Bengal, and under the British rule. So here is a story of Marwadi family. Marwadis are essentially the trading and the manufacturing class and community in the South Asian subcontinent, a Hindu trading community. And this man, Kulbhushan, belongs to this family, and he is amongst the losers in the group of four brothers, and is not very attractive to look at, unlike his brothers. Is the black sheep in the family. And after he flunks his matriculation, he runs away from home and comes to Calcutta, then Calcutta, and settles down with a Bengali girl in the Bengali neighborhood. Now, 1905, the year is registered as one of the bloody years in the history of Southeastern subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent, and Kulbhushan tries to rearrange his life from the scratch with a new Bengali name with his Bengali partner. But his family also flees Bangladesh and arrives in Kolkata and establishes itself in a slightly more high profile and high end neighborhood compared to Kulbhushan's. They gradually discover that the entire family is in Kolkata now, and they discover Kulbhushan's financial miseries and the way he has been handling life. It's a huge disappointment to the entire family. And then the watershed gates of emotions, bitterness in the family, and of course the regional marginalization, linguistic marginalization, linguistic politics, the entire Pandora box opens very beautifully. So this is a book written by an author, Alka Saraugi, who has won Sahitya Akademi Award, which is the highest literary award in our country. And her book, Kalikatha via Bypass, has already been translated into several languages that I just mentioned. And I'm hopeful that in the coming future, Kulbhushan Ka Naam Darj Kijiye, which is getting a lot of pre-publishing reviews from our authors and our reviewers. I hope that this would interest a lot of readers across the world. And there's a lot of research. This is history. This is human relationships. This is a family saga, and a lot of Bengali, and of course Marwari Hindi it just paints the linguistic landscape of this beautiful book. The second book I want to talk about is called Meera versus Meera. Meerabai is considered, quote unquote, the poet and saint in the Bhakti period of the Hindi poetry canons. Meerabai was born a princess, was married to a king, and was the queen. But the narratives around her in the 14th and 15th century were created in a way that projected her as a saint poet, as somebody who challenged the patriarchal society of that time and was devoted to Lord Krishna. So these are the so this book, Meera versus Meera, is aiming to explore various facets of portrayal of Meerabai through the passage of history. It is written in Hindi originally by Dr. Madhav Hada, who is right now the residing scholar at Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla. And his Hindi book, also published by Vani Prakashan, called Pachrang Chora Pehen Sakhiri. It's a phrase from one of the lyrics written by Meerabai, which signify being drenched in the devotion of the god, but of course has a lot of political feminist undertones. So this book is a translation of an Hindi original. The Hindi book did very well. In fact, it opened a lot of research gates for so many students in Hindi, English, and Malayalam. Very surprised that a lot of interest in this book came from Malayalam reading students who are also accessing Hindi through their classmates and through their research guides in India. So this book opens a lot of questions about how a woman is projected through politics, through temple politics, through the passages of history, being a princess or being a feminist queen, or being a priest, or being somebody who defied the laws of the palace, and she's standing for her own rights, her own will. It's a complicated gamut of visions, of perspectives on a woman's life, what is projected in public and how it is conceived in the private space. So I wish I could have made myself more clear with the video that I had crafted for talking about this beautiful book by Dr. Madhav Hada and translated by Professor Pradeep Rekha. But somehow I'm not able to share my screen, but I will put it up on social media tonight so that those who are interested in this medieval Indian queen, priestess, can definitely have a look at the video and get a better sense of what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Christine. So these are the two books that I wanted to talk about.
Thank you so much, Aditi. And I wanted to mention before your presentation that Vani Prakashan has been really an active force in the revolution of Hindi language and literature, and has really contributed as a catalyst in the Hindi boom. So it's why we wanted to invite you for Hindi language, and also why we wanted to invite Cre-A again, because we really want to work more with Indian languages. So this is a transition, and also because Vani Prakashan is also very close associated with the prestigious Center for Studies of Developing Societies in Delhi, and you mentioned the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla. And so I'm very pleased to finish this webinar with Rémi Toulouse and Bruno Arbach, because they represent a big French publishing house specialized on the field of humanities and social sciences. And they will, without video, but they will present a panorama of the topics of social sciences books this year and this for the Rentrée Littéraire. Thank you, both of you, Rémi and Bruno, for you are on stage already, so for joining us. Thank you.
Rémi?
You can start maybe, Bruno. And
can you hear me?
Yes, no problem.
Okay.
So
thank you for your invitation. We are very happy, Bruno, Orbach, and me, to meet you, even if we don't have any camera. Maybe it's better for you, in fact, even through the use of screens, and even if, of course, the pandemic does not spontaneously incite us to optimism, neither for our profession, nor more broadly, of course, for the state of the world. So we decided to depart slightly from the principle adopted by Ms. Cornet and her team, and to present to you a little more than two books, not a panorama, in fact, but we will say a very quick word about 4 books from our Rentrée, which of course we cannot call littéraire in our case, because we don't publish any literature. Because it seems to us that this at least will have the merit of giving you a slightly more panoramic view of our production, and will allow you to see what are, at the moment, the concerns, the questions, the expectations of a publishing house like La Découverte, which, you remembered it, is the largest in France dedicated to social sciences, and more broadly, as you say in the English world, to a serious nonfiction. So you will see that the coronavirus crisis is certainly occupying our minds as publishers, but not that much after all, and from angles and points of view that we hope are original. In fact, this Rentrée is notably marked by the important presence of history on immigration, on colonialism, on feminisms, on the origins of globalization, etc., but also by books which attempt to think the possibilities and the alternatives to capitalism already emerging in our present, or, for example, by a new series that we will launch in September, in which social sciences are in dialogue with evolutionary biology, and about which Bruno will tell you a few words in a few minutes. So we obviously can't go through everything, because we published something like 50 titles between August and November. But we have selected a few ones that we hope and we think might be of interest to you. So maybe, Bruno, you can begin with Julien Duy.
Yes, thank you. Hello everybody. So the first book I would like to present might be of interest, indeed, I hope. In a country like India, endowed with such rich, complex, and fascinating mythological traditions. Indeed, in this book, Cosmogonies, The Prehistory of Myth, the author, Julien Duy, who is a young scholar, discusses the origins of myth. However, its purpose is not to analyze a specific methodology, whether it be in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, or in America. Rather, it tries to answer a simple question. Why are myths alike throughout the world? Why do they share recurring themes? And why their plots are so similar, even though details may be different? Folklorists, anthropologists, and linguists have long puzzled over why complex mythical stories around the world are so close to each other in their structure, whereas the cultures in which they are or were told are widely separated in space and time. And the answers Julien Duy tried to provide is that the structural and narrative similarities between myths can be explained by a common ancestry. So this pioneering work draws on evolutionary theory and computer modeling in the comparative mythology to reconstruct the genealogy of big families of myths, to elucidate how and why myths and folktales evolve, and to retrace their history from as far back as prehistory. So this research borrows conceptual tools that biologists use to decipher the evolution of living species, and it transfers a phylogenetic methodology to the analysis of myths, which consists in connecting successive versions of a mythical story and constructing a family tree that traces the evolution of the myth over time. So this research provides compelling new evidence that myths and folktales have followed the movement of people around the world. It reveals that certain tales probably date back to the Paleolithic period, the Stone Age, when humans developed primitive stone tools and spread together with early wave of migration out of Africa. The study also offers insights into the origins of this myth by linking oral stories and legends passed on from generation to motifs that appear in Paleolithic rock art images. Ultimately, the quest leads to identify prehistoric proto-myths that may even offer a glimpse of the mental universe of our ancestors. And for the second book we've chosen to present, we'll move to a totally different subject. The title of the book is Fight, Punish, Photograph. It's been written by Daniel Folliard, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Paris. In 2017, he published a book on the connections between British cartography and the invention of the Middle East, which is called Dislocating the Orient, British Maps and the Making of the Middle East, which been published by University of Chicago Press. And in this new work, Daniel Folliard analyzes early war photography in colonial context between 1890s and the First World War. And through the analysis of the private albums of colonial soldiers with the analysis of collections of the first photographic agencies, this work presents a sort of archaeology of conflict photography. It focuses on photographs on physical violence and armed destruction committed by Europeans in their colonial empires. And he has the question, what was the purpose of this photograph? What was their meanings in the context of colonial empires? And so obviously these photographs are really difficult to watch, but Daniel Folliard's presentation of these photos shows that far from being a pornographic illustration of disaster, they allow the observer to discover the men and women of the past rather than passive, anonymous victims frozen on paper. And thank you. I let the floor to Remy to present two other books of Rentrée. Remy.
Other book in our catalog because it's a graphic novel. We publish very few graphic novels. It happens, but it's quite rare. And because it's a graphic novel on Frantz Fanon, which is as you maybe know, a very important figure for La Découverte and before La Découverte for les éditions Maspero. So it's a 250 pages long graphic novel on the life and thought of Frantz Fanon, which can be considered as quite an introduction to his thought, and which takes the pretext of his famous meeting with Jean-Paul Sartre in Rome in August 1961 to capture at the same time the personal tragedy and the role in decolonization of Fanon, whose work, as you know, resonates throughout the world until today. So the narrative is organized as a 3-day closed door in which Fanon retraces his journey and brings the contradiction to the great philosopher he has admired since his youth. Beyond a common vision on the urgency of decolonization, can these two men agree on the political destiny of Algeria? Is Fanon exhausted at this time by the leukemia that will strike him down 4 months later, in a position to bear the reticence of Sartre, a white, bourgeois, and famous philosopher, in the face of his own revolutionary injunctions, which imply, of course, a total break with France? So the reader will see in this book, between past and present, the incandescent trajectory of this young man, Fanon, who very early on joined the Free French Forces in the struggle against the Nazis in North Africa and France, before plunging headlong into the Algerian cause, first with the patients of the psychiatric hospital of Blida, where he was a psychiatrist as a pioneer of institutional psychiatry, then with the FLN, of which he was the spokesman and then the ambassador. So it was for Fanon the discovery of the damage of colonization on the Algerian psyche, on the Algerian minds at the hospital of Blida in the early 50s that determined his vision of human life and his anti-colonial commitment. So for him, colonization was an illness that had to be treated by shock therapy, which he called revolution. So this is the first book I wanted to talk to you about. The second one is titled The Pandemic's Factory, Preserving Biodiversity, Essential for the Health of the Planet. It's co-written by Marie-Monique Robin and Serge Morand, in collaboration with Serge Morand. Marie-Monique Robin, maybe you know her already. She's a journalist and filmmaker. She has made numerous documentaries in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, for which she has been awarded some 30 international prizes. She's also well known for being the author of At la Découverte, The World According to Monsanto, published in French in 2008 and translated into several languages, including English, in 2012. And Serge Morand is a scientific researcher at the French National Center for Scientific Research, who also works as the Infectious Diseases Research Center in Laos, and already the author in 2016 of a book titled The Next Plague, a comprehensive history of infectious diseases. So in this very rigorously documented essay and investigation, Marie-Monique Robin and Serge Morand explore the link between the proliferation of new viruses and the destruction of biodiversity, and of course the history of this link. So the main interest and the power, you could say, of this book is that it gives a unique, comprehensive view by providing a synthesis of numerous scientific works and previously unpublished interviews with some 60 international researchers that she did herself. So the authors say, if nothing is done, of course, ever more serious pandemics will follow. Thus, rather than a vain race for vaccines, or the chronic confinement of the population, the only antidote to this threat is the preservation of biodiversity, which implies to challenge the pernicious power of humans over ecosystems, power which is the fruit of the dominant economic model. And that's it. Et voilà.
Thank you so much, Rémi and Bruno. for the presentation of these four titles: history, feminism, colonialism, the topics of the Rentrée Littéraire, but not only. I would like to say the topics of French social sciences in some way. I'm very pleased to know about Frantz Fanon, because it's very important work. And I'm sorry, because I wanted to invite Nicolas Roche, the director of the BIEF, the International Office of French Publishers. But unfortunately, for technical reasons, we can't invite him on stage. But I'm very happy for this diversity of Rentrée Littéraire, even as you mentioned, both of you, Bruno and Rémi. It's not only literature, it's also social sciences, and I think that during this current period, it's really important to point out these different topics. And we have just, I would like to mention before concluding, we have some questions. We have a publisher interested in some books and wanted to say yes, Sabine, what is the word count of the two books you present? We have another question about translation. One is she's Sweta Banga. She's a research scholar, and her research topic is Les femmes et la violence conjugale. So she will be very interested to have some suggestion from you. And also we have Latana Rayanan, who she wanted to know if we consider publishing Kannada poetry translated into French from an English version. So just to maybe to try to summarize, and because it's already 1 hour 23 minutes of dialogue, of meeting, and we had 100 person connected, and again 41, so thank you for your patience. And in terms of translation, as I said before, we really want to focus on French text translated into Indian languages, not through English. For sure, it was probably necessary these last decades, but now it's really more important to focus on translation directly from French into Indian languages. It's why the French Institute in India is organize next October a translation program from French to Malayalam, and we want to develop this program in different Indian languages. And we will have a differentiation in Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Tamil, etc. We will inform you. You can check on the website already of the French Institute in India that we announce this program. Yes, I would like also to mention one question. We have Elsa Matthews online. She's a great translator from French to English. But she was interested, Laure, by Apulé, and maybe you can speak about this Apulé collection. Maybe to conclude, because Apulé it's like how to say an open window on all literatures in the world, if I may say that. Laure, please, if you want to. Yeah, thank you.
You know, when you're a publisher, you always say no. because you have to select the book you publish. As many of the publishers here today, we all are very strict to publish very few books, because we cannot do otherwise, and it's the best way to promote our books is publishing very few books. So Apulé, which is a literary review, literary magazine, being published once a year, every year. It's a way to say yes to so many different literary proposals, either poetry or reflection or narratives, fiction. So every year we select one theme, and but we don't stick to this theme so strictly. Last year it was about human rights. Next year it will be about nature, and I was so sad that this Indian invitation to Litte Paris was cancelled for so many reasons, but also because in Apulé we had so many beautiful Indian translations from Indian text in this last edition of Apulé. So I don't publish poetry, I don't publish theater, I don't publish very short text, but within Apulé we are able to open the pages to so many different kind of literature. So don't hesitate to suggest anything, as long as it is translated into French, so we can be able to read it, and then we can publish it in numerous languages also. I mean, it's one of the funny things with Apulé, that in each numéro, my English is all lost. We have text in Arabic or in Tamil or in so many other languages, because even if the French readers cannot read all these languages, it's important to show the writing and to be aware all the time of the diversity that is in the world and in literature.
Thank you so much, Laure, and thank you again to all of you for sharing 1 hour and a half. And we reached the maximum of attendees, 100 persons. And so it's why Nicolas can't, we don't know why, because now we are again 37 participants, but it is really disappointed, but he will attend other webinar. And please do not hesitate to contact the book office and the French Institute in India to share your contact between Indian publishers and French publishers if you are interested in to know more about your catalogs. And I wanted to mention that with you, French publisher and you Indian publishers, we will release a new catalog of French titles and Indian titles on ecology, on feminism, on artificial intelligence and children books. It's a new release for 2022 and 2021 in the perspective of Livre Paris 2021, and also in the perspective of New Delhi World Book Fair in 2022, because France will be the country guest of honor. So it's also why we really want to be more close with you and to develop more and more titles. We would love to present in 2022 50 new French titles, translated in all Indian languages. That's a target. And I feel we will reach it because during the lockdown, and thank you for all Indian publishers, because we received a lot of demands for a PAPTAGO, which is the program for helping Indian publishers to publish and to translate French title into Indian languages, and we received more than 28 demands, and so it's a new dynamic, and even if the period is again fragile for publisher, but maybe this time offer an opportunity to have better translation, because maybe translators have more time. And I hope that we will have other webinars in the coming months to prepare Livre Paris 2021. So do not again hesitate to contact us for keeping touch all together, and to welcome you in Paris, not only by Zoom, Livestorm, or all platform, because literature, and authors, translators, it's really, these kind of festivals are really a good opportunity to meet, not only via these digital ways. So again, thank you so much for all of you for joining us during 1 hour and a half. Sorry for some technical problems at the beginning, but we will improve all our new ways of communication. Thank you again so much, and see you soon.